Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. Emrys Kale, an insomniac scholar of the arcane, had pursued whispers of the key for years. His nights were a tapestry of half-remembered symbols and the scratch of quill on parchment. When a letter arrived unsigned with the words "Seek the Elm at Solstice's Eve," Emrys knew his search had reached its end. On the longest night of winter, he unearthed the trunk and lifted the key. It glowed pale blue as if reflecting the halo of the full moon above. Emrys slipped it into his coat pocket and returned to his study, hands trembling with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. That night, Emrys lay sleepless in his chamber. At the stroke of one, he unclasped the key. In his haze, he noted the empty air above his writing desk, or so he thought. When he inserted the key into the void, he felt a gentle click, as though unlocking a latch in the firmament. A door appeared. A panel of mist edged in silver, hovering where no door should stand. Heart pounding, Emrys lifted the latch and stepped through. He found himself in a vast library, its shelves soaring into darkness. Countless books drifted along the aisles, their pages inscribed with dreams unspoken and memories forgotten. A pale librarian, a woman whose eyes shimmered with half-remembered sorrow, approached. Librarian, whispering, "You hold the key of somnolence. Here lie your unwritten chapters and the dreams you abandoned. Choose one and live it within sleep's domain." Emrys hesitated, then plucked a gilded volume titled "A Childhood Never Lived." As he opened it, the library dissolved into the scent of wildflowers and the sound of his mother's laughter. Visions of a youth he never knew. He felt joy and grief swirl together until the pages snapped shut. Emrys returned through the mist door at dawn. The key pulsed, a heartbeat of moonlight. Over the next nights he ventured again and again. 1. The Gallery of Unspoken Fears. A hall hung with portraits that pulsed with dread. Monsters of self-doubt, shadows of regret. Emrys faced each painting and spoke aloud the fear it embodied, dissolving the canvases into stardust. 2. The Garden of Endless Yearning. A moonlit glade where flowers bloomed in shapes of longing. Hands reaching, tears crystallized in petals. Emrys gathered the blooms and whispered blessings, watching their color fade to silver. 3. The Cathedral of Lost Prayers. A vaulted sanctuary where vaulted ceilings echoed prayers never answered. Emrys lit candles for each plea, love, healing, pardon, and felt the hush of comfort fill the nave. With each journey, Emrys felt his waking self weaken, his eyes dulled, his heartbeat slowed. The key's magic sang in his veins, binding him ever nearer to the realm beyond sleep. The villagers murmured that he roamed by day like a ghost, eyes cast downward, whispering to himself in half-formed sentences. One night, confronted by the librarian, Emrys asked the question that haunted him. "Emrys, why does the key cost so dearly? Why does each dream I unlock drain my life?" Librarian: "Every door you open takes a piece of your waking soul. Dreams and reality are twin flames. Fueling one dims the other." Fear knotted in Emrys's chest. He realized that if he pressed on, he might never awaken fully again. Determined to reclaim himself, Emrys delayed no longer. He returned to his chamber where the mist door shimmered into being. This time, he forged within himself the will to close the path. He opened the key to the final door, a gate of swirling midnight fog, and steeled himself. Beyond lay the chamber of true renewal, a simple room with a single mirror and a basin of clear water. The mirror showed Emrys's own reflection, eyes heavy with both wonder and regret. The basin's water rippled until words formed across its surface. Let go your lock of dreams and enter again your waking world. Emrys took a deep breath, laid the key across the mirror, and whispered, Emrys, I release what I have sought. May these doors close behind me. He poured the water into the mirror's frame. The glass steamed, then dissolved. The mist door faded. The key's glow extinguished. Emrys awoke at dawn in his own bed, his cheeks flushed with sunlight. The key lay on his pillow, dull and cold, its magic spent. He rose, restored, and ventured outside into the golden morning. The world seemed sharper, richer, the chorus of life's small moments echoing in his grateful heart. He penned, The Atlas of Somnolent Doors, a book never to be published, filled only with cautionary notes. The key he placed within a sealed chest beneath the elm, its velvet interior empty, but for the silent promise that some doors are best left unopened. And on moonless nights when sleepers dream deep, a faint hum may ripple through the hollows of Ainsley's Reach, and those who listen close will swear they hear the soft turning of a silver key, echoing through the corridors of their own hearts. Marian Aldridge had studied lost roads since childhood. A cartographer of restless mind, she believed no path truly vanished forever. When she uncovered an old map in her grandfather's trunk, marked only by a thin red line snaking into Hallamere, she dismissed his warnings as superstition and set out to chart every twist and dead end. She arrived at Brambleshade at dawn, greeted by curious stares as she bought provisions and sketched the old path's rumored entrance. Innkeeper Burns shook his head. You're chasing ghosts, miss. Folly will drag you under the arbor's boughs, never to shed its shadow. Marian smiled politely. She had plans beyond hearthside caution. At evening's edge, she followed a creek until she found it, a carpet of faded russet leaves outlined by gnarled oaks, the forest floor as smooth as a well-worn trail. Marian marked her position by compass and sunstone, then stepped onto the path. At first it led gently uphill, dappled by fading sunlight. She consulted her map. All matched so far. But as dusk climbed the canopy, she realized the path should have turned east, but instead it continued straight. She adjusted her compass, chalked a mark on a nearby stone, and pressed on. By moonrise, the trail had curved subtly northward, an angle she'd neither plotted nor anticipated. She stopped to rest and found her chalk mark vanished, the stones smooth once more. The moon shimmered through the pines and Marian's heart quickened. The path itself was erasing her progress. True dawn never came. Marian's chronometer ticked on, but outside her tent, the sky flickered between violet and umber. She walked at dawn chime, dusk chime, each turn of her compass certifying the path's deceit. She mapped every leaf-covered stone, yet found them afresh each morning as though replanted by unseen hands. She encountered signs of others, torn scraps of a tattered cloak, footprints that led off the path into fog, then circled back. Once she heard voices chanting in a tongue half-remembered, only to find no one when she raced toward the sound. She began to leave notes carved on bark. If you find me, save yourself. But the next day the trees stood unclawed. On the 14th sunset, Marian found 3 shapes following at twilight's end. Hollow-eyed figures whose clothing shifted like mist, who clasped their hands around throats they could no longer speak through. They mirrored Marian's footsteps, silent and sorrowful. She fled, stumbling, her lantern bright in the creeping dark. Behind her their laments rose. Turn back, turn back. There is no return. Marian pressed on, heedless of hunger or thirst, guided by stubborn hope. At each fork, of which there were many, she chose the way that glowed faintly, as though moonlight shimmered beneath its fallen leaves. Yet each choice brought her deeper into the forest's heart, farther from any path she knew. On the 33rd twilight, Marion reached a clearing where starlight flooded a circle of silver stones. At its center stood a gnarled oak ringed by ghostly moss. Marion collapsed beneath its branches, half crazed with despair. She dug in her pack and found her grandfather's final note. In the forest's heart, only memory can guide the lost home. She closed her eyes, recalling every detail of roads left behind: the curve of the riverbank, the homely cottage door, her grandfather's smile at sunrise. She whispered each to the air: "Home is where the hearth glows." The silver stones pulsed. Moonlight gathered in the oak's hollow. A path of pale phosphorescence snaked from the clearing back toward the west. Marion rose, strength returning with each remembered footfall. The trees parted before her, leaves brushing in silent approval. The hollow-eyed figures faded as she passed, freed from their endless vigil. At the forest's edge, pale dawn broke for the first time in her 33 days, casting embers reaches towers on the horizon. She stepped onto the old country road, her map intact, compass steady, heart alive with wonder. The endless way had tested her resolve and shown her that only by bearing the light of memory within could one find their way back. Back in the guild's hall, Marion presented her findings. She produced 2 parchments, one, a chart of every known road, the other a single verse. Where path betrays the traveler, only memory paves the way. Celestial cartographers added it to their library, marking Celeste's path in hearts rather than on maps. As for Marion, she returned each year at autumn's close to the forest's edge, leaving a lantern and scrap of chalk, reminding any who dared to wander that to walk the endless way is to walk within oneself, and that return lies not in the road, but in what you carry in your mind. Thus ends the tale of the forest path that never returns, yet leads once more to home when the traveler remembers who they are. Decades later, the vault lay half forgotten beneath the palace, until a fire broke out during a winter's festival. Young Lady Elowin, cousin to the current king, heard the vault's screams of crackling wood and molten iron. Braving smoke and falling beams, she flung open the doors and rescued the silver harp, its silver strings glimmering among charred crates. That night, after the palace repaired the vault, Elowin brought the harp to her chambers. She ran her fingers across the strings, playing a simple lullaby learned from her childhood nurse. As the notes floated forth, tiny tears welled at the harp's sound holes and fell onto the polished floorboards. Elowin, softly, "Why do you weep, noble friend?" Harp's lament, thoughtful whisper, "For every sorrow you carry, and every joy you've forgotten." Elowin's heart clenched. She realized the harp did not mourn only the queen's loss, but every grief of every hand that touched it. Word of the weeping harp spread to every corner of the kingdom. Bards and minstrels came to play its strings, each hoping to harness its magic. But all who played emerged drained, eyes red, hearts raw. One by one, they left crumbs of memory. Lost loves, broken oaths, childhood scars, spilled into the harp's tears. Among them came Garrick, a wandering minstrel with no name. Only a lute and a promise to lift the harp's curse. In the great hall under flickering torchlight, Garrick tuned his lute to the harp's crystal strings. He played a melody of dawn's first light, of hope kindled in darkest nights. As their harmonies entwined, the harp wept anew, yet its tears glowed like starlight on velvet. Garrick sang, "Weep no more, O harp of grief, let tears be seeds of new belief." At the song's end, the harp's tears stilled, and its strings rang clear and true. With Garrick's aid, Elowin carried the silver harp to the royal gardens under the full moon. There, in the rustling reeds and silvered fountains, she sang to the harp her own sorrow, the loss of her brother to plague, the loneliness of her station, the fear that joy was beyond her reach. As each note trembled in the night, the harp's tears fell, only to vanish before touching the ground, evaporating like dew before dawn. Harp's lament, gentle whisper, your sorrow I hold, but no more shall I weep for so short a while. Elowen smiled through her tears. For the first time, the harp wept only once, then fell silent. In the weeks that followed, the silver harp lost its tears altogether. Elowen and Garrick traveled the realm, bringing the once weeping harp to wounded villages and mourning halls. Each night, under starlight, they played. One, the song of renewal. For fields scorched by drought, coaxing green shoots from parched earth. Two, the anthem of remembrance, for tombstones broken by war, carving names back into stone with music. Three, the carol of laughter, for orphaned children weaving notes into playful dances of hope. Where the harp had once wept, now blossomed harmony. Where grief had festered, souls found peace. One moonless eve at the edge of the sea-bound cliffs, Elowen paused before Garrick's traveling troupe. She looked upon the harp's silver body and spoke in hushed wonder. Elowen, harp, you have shed tears for every sorrow, but what have you gained? The harp's strings glowed faintly. In a voice like distant wind, it answered, harp's lament, I have held your pain, and in return, you have sown the seeds of mercy. My tears were the rain. Now I am the forest grown from your hope. Garrick and Elowen realized the harp's magic. It wept not to burden the world, but to gather sorrow so that its music might transform it into joy. The silver harp found its home in the Hall of Harmony at Vale's Reach. No longer did it weep. Instead, its strings glowed with soft silver light. Each solstice, Elowen and Garrick led the festival of requiem and renewal. Citizens gathered to play the harp's strings, sharing their grief so that the music could carry it away, and planting seeds of song for the year to come. And when the dawn chorus rose across the capital, the harp's final chord lingered in every heart, a reminder that every tear once shed can blossom into a melody of hope that lasts forever. Thus ends the tale of the harp that wept with every note, no longer a vessel of sorrow, but a living testament to music's power to heal even the deepest wounds of the soul. Althea Marrow, a young scholar of forbidden lore, arrived in Vale's Reach clutching a battered grimoire once belonging to her late mentor, Davin Crowley, an expert in uncanny thresholds. In its margins, he'd noted rumors of Seppel's Hollow, coding the glyphs he'd copied from travelers' sketches. The gate had never opened since his disappearance 15 years past. Althea sought the truth of those margins. On the eve of the blood moon, she set out from Vale's Reach with her servant, Rowan Hale, steady-eyed, loyal, but fearful. Together they crossed the swamp's floating boardwalks, lanterns swaying with each step. Beneath bitter stars, the air smelled of rot and brimstone. At midnight, the red moon rose, casting the marsh in ruby haze. Althea brushed aside the reeds. There it stood, the stone pillars etched with writhing bodies, their faces locked in eternal screams. The air grew heavy. Rowan shivered. Althea laid the grimoire atop a stone plinth beside the gate and read the incantation Davin had scrawled. By blood moon's gaze and memory's fracture, open the seam between waking dread and slumber's slaughter. A low hum vibrated through the air. The gate's arch flickered, revealing a black void within, like a slit through the world itself. Steeling herself, Althea slipped through. Rowan followed, lantern held high. They emerged into a warped reflection of their world. The marsh's reeds writhed like serpents. The dark water pulsed with phosphorescent eyes, and the sky churned with blood-tinted clouds. From the swirling fog emerged a figure, a small child, pale as moonlight, clutching a ragged doll. Her eyes were empty hollows of fear. Child, voice echoing, Have you come to remember me? Althea's skin prickled. Rowan's fingers tightened on the lantern. The child darted away, beckoning them deeper. They followed a winding path between reeds into a vast courtyard of broken statues. Knights with shattered visages, noble women whose hands twisted in sorrow. Each statue's base bore a name, victims of forgotten tragedies. As Althea's lantern swept across them, the figures' faces like living marble quivered, and soft cries escaped their stone lips. Voices, chorus, "We wait, we wait, we wait." Althea grasped Rowan's cloak. "We must press on." They discovered a ruined chapel beyond the courtyard. Inside, pews strewn with tattered hymnals, their pages blank. On the altar lay a single blackened candle burning with blue flame. Althea sniffed the air. Brimstone and damp earth mingled with heartache. Beneath the chapel floor, they found steps descending into catacombs lit by phosphorescent moss. At the end lay a chamber mirrored in obsidian glass. Althea's reflection shimmered, but then shifted into her childhood self, wide-eyed and trembling. Rowan saw his younger brother, lost to fever, reach for him through the glass. Althea, horrified. "These are my nightmares, my forgotten fears." "Rowan, we must break the mirror." Althea hesitated, her reflection's hand pressed to the glass. Then, chanting an emergency ward from Davin's notes, she raised her lantern high and shattered the obsidian with a strike from its iron handle. The mirror cracked in a spiderweb of light, releasing a cascade of anguished wails. As the mirror fell silent, the catacomb walls trembled. The gate's void pulsed above on the distant chapel floor. Althea and Rowan hastened back through the chapels and statues, shards of obsidian crunching beneath their boots. They reached the gate as the void closed into an eye of darkness. Althea raised the grimoire. "By memory freed and fear unbound, seal this breach of sleep's gray ground." She thrust a root of moonfern into the plinth's stone basin. Rowan poured the blue flame candle's wax over the runes. The gate's arch collapsed inwards with a thunderous sigh. The blood moon's crimson light flickered and died, replaced by pale starlight. Althea emerged at dawn into the silent marsh. The reeds lay still. The gate's stones lay toppled, reclaimed by muck. Rowan stood beside her, safe but solemn. Neither spoke until the sun's rays broke across the sky. Back in Vale's reach, Althea penned Shadows of Seppel's Gate, a chronicle of nightmares, faced and sealed, a warning to future scholars. Rowan built a small shrine of moonfern by the boardwalk's edge, honoring the lost souls they'd freed. And sometimes at midnight, on moonless nights, villagers swear they see a lone lantern's glow drifting through the reeds. Althea's vigil for the nightmares that sleep once more in forgotten hollows. Thus ends the tale of the gate that opens to forgotten nightmares, an echo of dread and of the courage born when we confront the darkest corners of our own fears. Alaric Wynne, mapmaker to the Crown of Lorraine, arrived in the hamlet of Black Willow at the river's source. Charged with charting every current and coastline of the realm, Alaric had heard rumors of a river whose waters flowed not with pure liquid, but with the gathered shadows of lost souls. His curiosity, like a candle in a dark cave, drew him to the riverbank at dawn's pale light. The villagers eyed his surveying instruments warily. Innkeeper Hester. Stranger, none map what devours the living light. The umbral runs for grief and death. Alaric resolute. Then I shall name its course, for names bind even shadows to truth. He set up his compass, quills and chronometer, determined to follow the river from its first trickle in the moss-clad springs to wherever its darkness spilled. By midday, Alaric had traced 20 paces of water, its ripple a sluggish black. As he bent to dip his pen in inkwell for a scale drawing, he glimpsed movement. A dark shape drifted on the current, vaguely human, limb-shaped, face-shaped. It slid beneath a fallen log and vanished. His heart thundered. He waited, quill poised over parchment. Then the shape reemerged, this time clear. The torso of a fisherman long dead, net and lantern clutched in ebony arms. The figure opened its hollow eyes and whispered, fisherman's voice, "Save our light." Alaric tumbled back, lantern shattering. When he dared the riverbank again, the fisher's phantom was gone, and the inkwell lay full, but the rippled water bore ink stains, as if the river had drunk his ink too. Determined, Alaric camped beside the umbral that night. He strung lanterns on forked stakes and drew lines on his vellum by their glow. As darkness deepened, the river roiled. Dozens of shadow forms rose from its depths. Miners, children, soldiers, each drifting past as though on parade. Their lips moved wordlessly, but in the hush he heard them. All, remember, release, we bleed the void. Alaric's hands shook as he sketched their shapes, his map swelling with frenzied outlines. When the moon vanished behind a cloud, the spirit slipped back beneath the surface, leaving Alaric alone with the echo of sorrow. At dawn, Alaric sought guidance from the river's only other inhabitant, old Calder, the reed-cutting hermit whose cottage stood on stilts above the marsh. He found Calder humming. "Calder, you chase shadows with your pen. Tread lightly, for the umbral waters bear the weight of forgotten grief. To chart it is to share its burden." Alaric, then how to end this sorrow? Calder, find the broken spire, where the river's tributary flows pure. There lies the key to rekindle the stolen light. Despite frail bones and murky warnings, Alaric pressed on, following Calder's cryptic directions upstream into ever darker fen. After days of fevered mapping, Alaric discovered the spire's ruins, a slender stone tower half collapsed in knee-deep water, a remnant of a chapel consecrated to dawn's light. Where its holy font once stood, a single jet of clear water sprang forth, feeding a hidden stream. Alaric knelt to sip its cool flow. Upon his tongue he tasted hope, sunlight's echo in liquid form. He scooped the pure water into a small flask, then climbed the tower's ruins to find a graven basin upon a marble plinth. Ancient runes encircled it. "Here let sorrow's waters meet the true. Cast them both, that all may renew." At moonrise, Alaric returned to the umbral's main channel, his lantern unlit to avoid startling the phantoms. He found a deep pool where shadow forms congregated, their whispering chorus rising, "All, give, us, dawn." Holding the flask aloft, Alaric recited Calder's prayer. "Waters of night and waters of day, together at last your grief allay." He poured the clear water into the murky umbral. The waters hissed, the shadows writhed. Then, light, a shaft of dawn pierced the mist, touching the river's surface. The phantom forms brightened, silver outlines gleaming, before rising as motes of light, drifting upward like fireflies. Their final whisper echoed, "All, thank you." In moments, the river's surface was clear, darkness drained, and the umbral had become a lively, singing stream once more. Alaric's maps were published as Cartography of the Umbral's Redemption, celebrated for both artistry and compassion. Black Willow and Raven's Rest rejoiced in waters safe to fish and sail. Old Calder's reed huts thrived with new life. Yet on misty morns, villagers still paused by the umbral's banks, recalling Alaric's courage and the lost souls he freed. And if one listens, where the clear stream meets the golden reeds, they say you can hear in the gentle rush of water the faintest echo of a fisher's call, "Save our light." Thus flows the umbral river, no longer a current of shadows, but a stream of memory and renewal. reminding all that even the deepest sorrow may finally find its dawn. Tamsin Rowan was a cartographer by trade and dreamer by heart. From her childhood in the bustling port of Embers Reach, she had heard whispers of Celeste's path, but no chart showed its course, for the trail would slip away from ink. When her mentor vanished pursuing the path, Tamsin inherited his journals, tattered sketches and fevered notes urging her to finish his work. Under an autumn sky, Tamsin set out on horseback for the edge of Evermist. She carried surveying instruments, compass, sextant, and measuring rod, plus a satchel of provisions and her mentor's journals bound in cracked leather. At the forest's fringe, she paused, heart coursing like a tide, and slipped beneath the moss-draped arch of oaks. The forest lay hushed, as though holding its breath. Tamsin dismounted and set her instruments upon a flat stone. By daylight, the floor was carpeted in moss, no sign of a path. But when shadows lengthened, she heard a faint click beneath her boot, a stone sliding aside to reveal another, straight ahead. She marked the spot with chalk and advanced. Each footfall released a soft grating as the mossy stones shifted, forming a narrow causeway through fern and stump. Tamsin followed, measuring her steps. 10 paces. Turn left at the elder spruce. 20 paces. A fork, and yet the trail moved, the left stone slipping to become the right. Her compass spun. Tamsin's journal. Observation 1. Trail stones repositioned to guide forward motion. Compass unreliable. Must timestamp each fork. As dusk fell, Tamsin lit a lantern. The trail's glow, faint phosphorescence from lichen, revealed symbols carved into each stone. Arrows, spirals, unknown runes. She traced them with her finger, feeling a murmur beneath the cold granite. Echoes of footsteps not her own, as if past travelers still walked the shifting way. She paused at a marking of concentric circles. According to her mentor's notes, this was the heart stone, a point of convergence where all who followed Celeste's path might glimpse its secret. Heart pounding, Tamsin stepped onto the stone, and the lantern's flame leapt, casting the forest in silver light. In its glow, she saw them, fleeting phantoms of wanderers past, their faces drawn in longing. Artists, soldiers, children, each seeking something lost. Their silent mouths moved in mournful chorus. Phantoms, find the end, release us. Tamsin trembled but pressed on. Night deepened. The trail lifted her steps over bramble, across a gurgling stream, and into a valley of standing stones. Here the path's stones stretched like a stairway down into mist. She realized the path demanded sacrifice. Leave behind what you cannot bear, or be carried away by the forest will. Her satchel's strap chafed her shoulder. Tamsin unshouldered her pack and placed it atop a pedestal of mossy stone. Her provisions, her instruments, her mentor's journal. The phantoms' faces softened, grateful. The lantern's flame steadied. Tamsin's journal. Observation 2. Path stones accept tokens of burden. Lightness grants passage. After the valley, the trail curved through ancient pines whose roots loomed like sleeping giants. Tamsin followed, lantern in hand, until she emerged into a moonlit glen ringed by silver birches. At its center lay a tranquil pool reflecting the stars, its waters unmoving in the windless night. Stepping forward, Tamsin saw the next heartstone set beside the pool. Upon it lay her mentor's compass, lost to the path so many days past. She picked it up, tears in her eyes. The mentor she sought had surrendered all to follow the shifting way and remained beyond her reach. She whispered a vow of remembrance and placed the compass back on the stone. As she did, the pool stirred. A mist rose, parting to reveal the far bank, and beyond it, the stone arch of Evermist's exit. The trail's stones glowed beneath her feet, leading on. When dawn's first rosy light touched the forest canopy, Tamsin stepped onto familiar earth beside the Evermist's edge. Behind her, where the glen had been, only blanket fog lay. In her hand she held the lantern, its flame now soft as a heartbeat. She unpacked her satchel, finding her instruments intact, her mentor's journal pages blank where she had carried it. But 3 new pages lay at the back, penned in her mentor's hand. To the next traveler, release your burdens and follow the stones. Know that the way reveals not only paths of place, but paths of heart. Tamsin folded the journal close. She returned to Ember's Reach to publish her maps, carefully noting that Celeste's path could not be plotted on any chart, but lived in each traveler's choice to press onward, to relinquish what weighs them down, and to embrace the unknown beneath their feet. Years later, rumor of Celeste's path spread among wanderers and seekers. At each new moon, those with burdens still to bear ventured into Evermist, carrying offerings of stone or steel, melody or memory. They learned that the trail beneath their feet would guide them only so far. They must release sorrow to find the hidden glen and accept its mystery to return home. And if, in the hush before dawn, you listen among the pines, you may hear the faintest rattle of stones shifting, and know that Celeste's path flows still beneath the traveler's feet, carrying hearts toward whatever end they seek. Elias Wren, a cartographer for the Royal Navigation Guild, arrived at the tiny fishing village of Greyhaven Cove under a drizzling dusk. His task? To chart every light and landmark along the coast before winter's freeze. He had heard the tavern tales of ships that vanished into the fog, of lanterns calling sailors to their doom, and he dismissed them as superstition. Yet as Elias rowed his skiff into the cove, he glimpsed that pale beam, one sweep across the Black Sea, then another. He docked with a start and hurried to the inn, determined to record the light's position. But the fisherman hushed his questions. Old Mariner Holt. You map straight lines, sir, but some lights curve the mind. Better chart the stars than follow Hollowshore. Elias smiled politely and strode into the night, compass in hand, bound for Grey Cap Point. The path to the lighthouse wound through wind-whipped grasses and jagged stones. At the foot of the tower, Elias paused. The beam had vanished. He climbed the spiral stairs, heart beating too fast, to the lamp room where dust lay thick and the lantern was long removed. No mechanism remained, only broken glass and a spiral of rusted iron. Yet at that instant, the beam reappeared, a single shaft of cold white light slicing through the window's cracks. Elias staggered back as its gaze fell upon him. In the ghostly glow, he heard voices carried on the spray. Guide us. Guide us. Turning, he saw no one, only the sea swirling into infinite gray. He raised his lantern and stepped to the window. Beneath the cliff, a phantom ship rode the swell, its sails ragged, its crew mere silhouettes. The beam swept again, beckoning. Elias's compass spun, needle wild. He knew then Hollowshore's beacon was no guiding light, but a siren calling souls to vanish. The next morning, Elias returned to Greyhaven Cove, face ashen. He found Mariner Holt at the quay, drawing nets. Elias. That light, it's false. It stole a ship from beneath my eyes. Holt. 5 years passed, my Harriet followed it, thinking it was safe passage home. She never returned. Elias's heart clenched at the man's grief. Holt's daughter, Clara, approached, her eyes hollow with hope. Clara. Papa, if you sail tonight, maybe you'll see her. Holt. I'll see nothing but lost dreams, lass. Best you leave the tide to his own devices. Clara wept. Holt hobbled away. Elias realized the beacon's cruelty. It tormented the living with echoes of the dead. That afternoon, Elias and Clara ventured into the overgrown yard of the keeper's cottage, once occupied by old Glenwick, the last lighthouse keeper. In a rotting chest, they found his journal, I thought to guide ships safe to port, but a darker power seized the dome. Each time I lit the lamp, the beam led the lost out to sea. I could not douse it. The light, it feeds on despair. I pray it dies with me. Glennick's final entry was smudged in tears. Elias closed the journal, resolve stealing in his eyes. Elias, we'll climb the tower, find the beam's source, and extinguish it for good. Clara, and maybe find her spirit too. That night, under a starless sky, Elias and Clara climbed the lighthouse stairs. Each step echoed hollowly. At the top, the beam flared once more, washing the room in unearthly white. Clara cried out, "Clara, there!" The lens in the loft, it glows from within. Above the lantern platform, a cracked mirror hovered, a Gothic disc etched with runes, rotating on no gear. Its reflection pulled the beam from emptiness below and cast it out to sea, an impossible, self-sustaining light. Elias, heart-pounding, raised Glenwick's journal and recited the final prayer. Darkness claim this light no more, return to tide, to fathom's floor. The mirror shuddered, the beam flickered, then fractured. Clara dashed forward and hurled a heavy wrench, cracking the mirror's surface. Its shards fell like black petals. The beam collapsed. The ghost of the phantom ship dissipated into mist. As dawn's first pale light crept through the windows, Elias and Clara emerged onto the tower's balcony. Beneath them, the sea was calm, the cove peaceful. No pale beam shimmered on the waves, only the reflected rose of morning. Clara gazed eastward, hope reborn. Clara, Papa's boat. It's safe to sail again. Elias nodded. Below, Holt emerged at the quay and unfurled white sails. The schooner Harriet drifted home at sunrise. Elias published The Phantom Light of Hollowshore, a warning to mariners, but also a testament to hope's power. The lighthouse tower remained, its top platform empty. No keeper ever lit it again. Instead, villagers built a small monument, a truncated stanchion bearing the broken mirror shard beneath a glass dome, symbol of the light that once guided the lost, and of those who guided itself back to nothing. And on moonless nights, Greyhaven Cove sleeps at peace, untroubled by false beacons. For here the only light that shines is the dawn's promise, and the only path is the one we choose by the turn of our own compass. Dr. Callista Renard, a linguist obsessed with arcane languages, was summoned to Blackwater Abbey to study the mass inscriptions. She arrived under a slate sky, her carriage rattling over causeways half submerged in peat. The abbey's stones glowed with damp luminescence, and cawing ravens perched in silent vigil. By torchlight, Callista inscribed the runes at the mask's edge, each curve and stroke humming beneath her fingertips. That night, as she slept in the scriptorium above the cloister, the masked whisper seeped into her dreams. "Find us within the shattered moon." She awoke, breathless, the words echoing in her mind like a forgotten lullaby. Callista donned the mask at dawn, seeking clarity. As the bronze touched her skin, 1,000 voices welled in her ears, fragments of vanished tongues, names of lost kings and drowned cities. The walls of the scriptorium dissolved into visions of marble halls beneath starless skies of robed figures chanting by a broken moon. She staggered back to her desk, quill trembling, and recorded every fragment. Marathalian's fall beneath silent waves. The moon fractured, its shards bound our fate. In the gallery of whispers, we wait for the last breath. By midday, Callista's eyes burned with fevered light. The mask's secrets drove her onward, toward truths that might fracture her mind. Consulting ancient chronicles in the abbey's crypt, Callista found mention of the shattered moon, a celestial fragment that fell to earth in ages past, imprisoning a conclave of sorcerers whose whispers shaped reality. Their leader, Aurelian the Silent, had forged the whispering veil from the moon's metal, sealing his council's power within its form. When mortal hubris shattered Aurelian's rule, the mask was hidden in Blackwater's stones. Callista realized the mask's command: "Find us within the shattered moon." She packed her journals and supplies, resolved to unearth the moon fragment buried beneath Blackwater's mirrored waters, and free or destroy the ancient voices. By lantern light, Callista descended into the abbey's flooded crypts. Her boat slid on cold, ink-dark water, echoing against submerged pillars. At the crypt's far end, she found a grate of iron bars set into the rock floor. Beneath, currents swirled in a deep shaft. Lowering a weighted lamp, she glimpsed a gleaming shard, a crescent of pale metal, etched with Aurelian's seal. Gasping, she pried it free, and the mask around her neck thrummed with recognition. "At last," Summit whispered. The shard pulsed in her palm, and the crypt's walls seemed to hum. Callista knew that once the fragment and mask united, the sorcerer's full power would awaken, and that her life and the world's hung in the balance. Back in the scriptorium, Callista fit the moon shard into the mask's halo. A thunderous sigh shook the windows, and the mask's hollow eyes glowed silver. The abbey dissolved around her into a domed hall of pale quartz, Aurelian's long-lost council chamber. Phantom figures emerged from the shadows. 8 robed sorcerers, their faces obscured by darkness, eyes glinting with starlight. Aurelian stood at the center, silent as stone, until Callista spoke his name. "Callista, I free you from your tomb. Teach me or end this forever." Aurelian's visage flickered. His voice, when it came, was 1,000 echoes in one. "Aurelian, we whispered the first truths until mortal fear shattered our word. Now the world forgets our power. Teach us what you seek, and we shall grant you sight." Callista trembled, torn between harnessing this ancient power and fearing its cost. Callista offered her mind to learn Aurelian's truths: the origins of magic, the cadence of fate, the pattern behind every dying star. Each secret unfolded in her thoughts like petals of cold moonlight, yet each revelation rent her sleep and blurred her senses. She saw the birth of languages, the rise and fall of civilizations, the circle of time itself. But with each gift came a price. The voices in her head grew louder, the mask gripped tighter. She realized the conclave's true intent: to reclaim their place as the world's unseen masters. If freed, they would bend mortal destiny to their will. Summoning her courage, Callista clutched the mask's edges. "Callista, knowledge without compassion means ruin. I reject your rule." Aurelian's phantom hand reached for her, but Callista yanked the moon shard free. The council's forms flickered, dissolving like mist in dawn. The domed hall shattered, and she fell back into the scriptorium. Dawn's light filtered through dusty windows as Callista, trembling, placed the mask and moon shard into a reliquary carved from Blackwater stone. She sealed the reliquary with 7 wards, runes drawn from her studies, prayers woven in ancient tongues, and cast it into the flooded crypt beneath the echoing arches where the shard was first found. The crypt's waters stilled, the reliquary sank, its surface cool under moonlit tiles. Callista covered the grate with iron bars once more, and sealed the crypt's entrance with mortar and silence. Years passed. Callista returned to Marlborough, haunted by the masked whispers she had refused. She wrote The Veil of Ancient Echoes, chronicling the legend without revealing the reliquary's resting place. Each year on the equinox, she sailed across Blackwater's waters to the abbey ruins, carrying a lantern of warding light, and whispered a vow. Ancient voices, sealed by choice, sleep once more beneath darkened stone. And beneath the moon's watchful eye, the waters remain still, saving their deepest secrets for the fateful night when mortal hands might again unbind the whispering veil of Aurelian's ghosts. Thus ends the tale of the mask that whispered ancient secrets. A reminder that some truths burn too bright for human hearts, and some slumbers, once broken, can never be refashioned. When Marina Cordeau took the curatorship of the Astral Gallery, she resolved to uncover the nocturne canvas's secrets. By day, she cataloged every crack in its frame, every flake of paint, and studied Vale's scrawled notes, half-legible verses on the living night and the breath of dreams. None hinted at the nightly transformation. On her first evening alone, Marina set up time-lapse cameras before the canvas and settled in the curator's office to watch. At 8 p.m., the painting glowed faintly under lamplight. By 10 p.m., its glassy waves had darkened to rich cobalt. Midnight found lanterns ablaze in the vessel's portholes. By 2 a.m., a lone figure stood at the bow, a spectral mariner she had never seen in daylight. Marina's breath caught when the figure raised a hand and beckoned. The time-lapse cameras captured every shift, but could not explain their magic. Curiosity seized Marina's heart. She combed the gallery's archives for Lysander Vale's missing journal. After weeks, she found a fragment in a dusty trunk. Tonight I paint not with pigment, but with dream fire. Each stroke summons the soul of the scene. Each dawn steals it away. Beware the mariner who stares beyond the horizon. The fragment ended abruptly, stained with salt and something darker. Marina realized Vale had willed the painting alive with nightly visions, yet had vanished before telling how to close the canvas's haunted portal. Marina recruited two allies, Theo Larson, a photographer drawn to the supernatural, and Sienna Cho, a conservationist skilled in unraveling old varnishes and binders. One moonless night, they gathered under blackout shades in the gallery. Sienna prepared a palette of solvents. Theo set lenses and infrared lamps. At dusk, they unveiled the nocturne canvas. Marina announced, "We aim to freeze the scene, to catch the living night in amber." They timed their approach to the painting's peak vividness at midnight. At 11:45 p.m., the three assembled before the painting. Sienna began applying a protective varnish over the surface, hoping to lock in its hues. Theo adjusted his cameras. Marina held her breath as the clock told 12. The painting shivered. Waves crested higher. The hull of the ship groaned, and the mariner's spectral form solidified, eyes bright with longing. As Sienna's brush touched the fresh varnish, the scene flickered, the mariner's gaze fixed on them. "Mariner," voice like wind through rigging. "Let me free." Marina's heart stuttered. The painting's frame glowed with pale moonlight. Sienna froze, her brush hovering. Theo's camera whirred. They realized they stood at the threshold between canvas and dream. Before panic could set in, Marina spoke. "We honor your voyage. Release us your story." The mariner's form swayed. "Mariner, I was Vale's brother, Errol. I vanished to sea beneath this moon. He trapped my soul to preserve my memory. But I am bound between brushstrokes." Sienna's brush trembled, smearing varnish onto the sky. The mariner's hand passed through the wet paint and into Sienna's sleeve, cold as brine. Theo steadied Sienna. Marina raised a hand in calm. "Mariner, to set me free, paint my truth in dawn's first light, my name, my fate, my love, and let the nocturne fade." Marina nodded. He turned, stepping into the ship's cabin. The scene softened. By 2 a.m., the canvas had regressed to its misty daytime form, each vibrant shade receding to silver. Through the night, Marina, Theo, and Sienna worked under dim red lamps. Marina sketched the brother and sister Vale, Errol aboard Stormchild, Lysander painting by lantern, their last farewell before the gale. Theo photographed each brushstroke. Sienna kept the varnish just moist enough. By dawn, the new dawn form of the nocturne canvas gleamed, a living portrait of Errol's sacrifice, Lysander's grief, and the sea's unending call. Marina inscribed below, in Vale's hand, "Errol Vale, mariner of Stormchild, lost to the gale of October 13th, 1847. Brother, friend, forever free. As the sun's first ray touched the frame, the painting scene dissolved into soft dawn mist. The nocturne canvas became a tranquil seascape at sunrise, its colors gentle and still. The spectral mariner was gone. The astral gallery reopened the former east wing at dawn. Visitors gathered before the nocturne canvas, now titled Errol's Release. No more did the painting tremble at midnight. Instead, it reflected the world at day. Gulls wheeling in pale blue sky, sails drifting on glassy seas. Marina Theo and Sienna published their findings in The Living Night, Vanishing Canvases, inspiring art historians to seek not only pigment, but the soul within. And when the moon rose full above Marlborough, they still paused at Errol's Release, remembering that every brushstroke can capture not only memory, but the promise of freedom beyond the canvas's edge. Dr. Beatrice Lane, a renowned specialist in architectural oddities, received an anonymous letter stamped with Ashwin's raven seal. Esteemed Doctor Lane, descend into the noonday chamber and record what survives in darkness. Seek truth where light perishes. Intrigued, Beatrice traveled to Ashwin Grange under a crimson autumn sky. The new lady of the manor, an aloof figure named Isolde Ashwin, greeted her with guarded politeness. Isolde, the chamber lies barred by sorrow and seal. If you wish entry, find the moon's silver key. At midnight, Beatrice slipped into the courtyard, retrieved the glowing disk from the fountain's lip, and returned to the east wing's false wall. The panel swung inward with a hushed sigh, revealing a door carved with a raven's shadow. In the noonday chamber beyond, Beatrice stepped into absolute darkness. Her lantern's flame guttered and died the instant she crossed the threshold. She reached instead for a vial of phosphorescent algae, glowing softly with an emerald light, and uncorked it. The algae's glow revealed a chamber of pale stone, 16 feet square, its walls painted with faint frescoes, now faded to ghostly outlines. On the far wall, a mural depicted Lady Esme Ashwin, kneeling before a celestial eclipse. In the fresco's shadows danced stylized ravens, their eyes hollow as they watched her grief. Beatrice moved closer, brushing dust from the mural's edge, revealing an inscription in flowing script. Where heart outlasts the sun's embrace, the living mourn in endless place. She shivered as the algae's glow dimmed, impossibly, even though its flask remained uncoupled. The chamber seemed to draw light into itself, devouring illumination. As Beatrice explored the room's corners, she heard a faint rustle, like silken skirts brushing stone. She turned off the algae light and listened. A whisper carried on the chamber's stale air. Stay with me. Beatrice relit her lantern. At its amber glow, the room revealed a single low stone bench, and beside it, a small alabaster chest. She opened the chest to find a bundle of faded letters bound in black ribbon. Unfolding the first, she read Esme's hand. My love is gone, taken before first light. In this room I leave my tears, my hope, my soul, until he returns or I am undone. Another letter spoke of candles that would not burn, of roses that withered in a single night, of clocks that ticked backward. Each letter ended with the plea, do not leave me, stay until the world forgets the sun. Beatrice felt a sudden weight of sorrow settle upon her heart, as though the chamber itself mourned alongside Esme. Beatrice set the letters aside and lit a tall candle carved with raven feathers. Its flame flared once, then sputtered and died, despite there being hours of wax left. She stared as the wick went cold. On the stone floor, droplets of molten wax solidified into shapes of grieving figures. She backed toward the door, only to find it vanished, the wall a solid expanse of stone where the panel had been. Panic rose. Beatrice's lantern flickered. its glass clouded. The fresco on the opposite wall seemed to move, the eclipse shifting, ravens flapping their wings. She realized the noonday chamber was alive with grief's own magic, reshaping itself in the absence of light. Desperate, Beatrice clasped Esme's letters to her chest and read aloud the final stanza of the mural's verse. Let sorrow rest upon the breeze, and shadows find release in ease. She poured out her own lament, a broken promise to her late mentor, a fear she dared not voice, a regret that curdled her sleep. As her voice quavered, the chamber responded. The false wall's seams glowed faintly, the candle's wick sparked and burned with steady flame, and the raven mural stilled. Beatrice whispered, I release you, Lady Esme. The alabaster chest ribbon unfurled and the letters lifted, swirling in a spiral of dust and ash, then settled in neat piles beside the bench. The mirrored door reappeared, echoing with a soft click as it opened to the moonlit corridor. Beatrice stepped out as dawn's first light brushed Ashwin Grange's battlements. She carried the letters in the blank slate of a learned heart. In Isolde's study, she laid out Esme's writings in her own journal. Beatrice's journal, final entry. The noonday chamber devours light but thrives on sorrow. Only by voicing grief and offering release can one escape its embrace. Grief, once shared, becomes memory, no longer a trap, but a treasure. Isolde removed the raven-sealed disc from her desk and placed it on a silk pillow for safekeeping. Isolde, you have freed what was bound here. Let the chamber fall to dust and the estate wake today. Years later, the east wing of Ashwin Grange stood in gentle ruin, its windows cleared of moss and stone steps leading to empty skies. The noonday chamber's door lay broken upon the floor, sunbeams soft upon its threshold. Scholars visited, finding only faded fresco fragments and the alabaster chest cracked in two. Beatrice's journals remain the only guide to the chamber's magic. Townsfolk paused by the ruins each morning, memories in their hearts, and knew that sorrow need not endure in darkness. Light once allowed could reach even the deepest night. Thus the noonday chamber's tale endured, reminding all that grief once spoken can free us from the endless gloom, so that no room, however sunless, ever remains forever in shade. One autumn morning, a carriage rattled up the hill from the north road, long disused save by errant rabbits and wandering sheep herders. From it stepped Mara Bell, a cartographer bent on mapping every lonely road in the realm. She carried grids, compasses, and ink-stained parchments. At the gate, she found a crowd of curious watchers. The brass plate above the arch read simply, Haven's Gate, beyond lies only the unknown. Mara presented her credentials. The gatekeeper, an elderly man named Holland Wake, took her parchments, frowned, and returned them unopened. Holland, best leave your charts here, miss. No need for maps you can't follow home. Mara shrugged, determined. She entered the town with her maps intact, unaware she had passed the threshold at dawn. Safe for now. For days, Mara explored Haven's Gate. She walked the rose-arched lane, noted the painter's shuttered studio, crossed the river by twin bridges. Each evening, she returned to the inn, poring over her maps. She marked routes outward, the North Hill Road, the Eastern Ford, the Southern Holloway. On the third dusk, she drew her quill across the fold where the hill road should continue. But at night she ventured forth and found only mist and tangled bracken. Back at dawn, her map showed the line gone, the road erased as though it never was. She retraced her steps and found herself once more before the inn, and no closer to escape. Mara gathered the townspeople in the square. She spoke of her lost roads. They nodded gravely. Old Hester the miller. My William tried once, long ago. He reached the ridge, then vanished in fog. I never saw him again. Baker Sandor. My father rode east to seek fortune. He never returned, but sometimes I hear hoofbeats at midnight. A hush fell. Mara realized this was no accident, but a law woven into the land. The folks told of those who learned to live within walls of mist, raising families, closing businesses, dying with the dawn as their only witness. Mara delved into the archives in the town hall's basement. Among brittle ledgers and fading scrolls, she found a 412-year-old charter. Let it be known that Lord Alistair Verdane, in sealing the Vale's peace against marauders, bound the lands with a ward. No foot shall pass beyond this gate after sunset, nor any light venture beyond its glow. She discovered entries from successive keepers, rituals to renew the ward, offerings of grain, pageants in the square, to ensure the boundary endured. Yet no record explained how to remove it. Determined, Mara scoured the Lord's old manor on the hill. There she found a hidden chamber beneath the hearth, and in its heart, a stone plinth carved with runes identical to those on the gate. Below the runes etched shallowly a single phrase, "Only the farthest heart may pierce the veil." That night, Mara shared her discovery with Holland Wake and a handful of townsfolk. Aldrich the blacksmith, Saris the healer, and young Tilly, whose mother had vanished. They resolved to test the runes at dusk. At the hilltop manor, they lit lanterns and recited the runes. Silver fire danced in the hearthstone, and the plinth's runes glowed. The gate in the valley trembled. Fog rolled from the arch like pale breath. Mara stepped forward, heart heavy with resolve. She loved the people of Haven's Gate, but could not remain imprisoned. She touched the gate's stone with her palm and spoke her truth. My heart seeks the road beyond, not for riches, but to learn and to return with knowledge for you all. The gate's runes pulsed, and for a moment the massed fog split, revealing a narrow stretch of road, lit by the lantern, icy by the moon. Mara hesitated. For 30 days and nights, she had grown to love Haven's Gate, its laughter, its crafts, its shared burdens. She turned to Aldrich, whose massive form loomed in lantern light. Aldrich, go, Mara. Bring back what you find. We'll keep the homeward path open with your word. She offered Saris a tear-stained smile. Tilly pressed a ribbon into her hand. Then with a wave, Mara stepped through the gate. The mist swallowed her lantern's glow, and she found herself on the ridge road under vast, star-laden sky. Below lay the valley in silver. Beyond, the world stretched endless. Months later, Mara returned, her pack brimming with maps of distant lands, her heart heavy with stories. She touched the gate by sunrise, spoke the runes in reverse. I return with knowledge for every hearth. The fog parted once more. Aldrich, Saris, Tilly, and Holland greeted her with cheers. Mara unfurled her maps in the square, teaching the townsfolk of wind-driven sails, steel forges, medicine from desert flowers, and roads that truly led onward. Yet each dusk, the nightway toward the valley rim vanished again, until dawn, and that became the gate's new covenant. Mara and any chosen few might pass at will, guided by vows of return. The townsfolk felt freer than ever, knowing they need never stay blind to the world beyond, so long as they never forgot the path that always led them home. Thus did Haven's Gate remain, no longer a trap, but a promise carved in stone and heart, where no one could leave forever, and everyone could choose to return. Dean Wynn was found in his private salon, crumpled beside a music stand. In his hand lay a bow, the mortifera's case open and empty. His face, pale as winter, bore a final, anguished expression. Word spread that his last words were, "I heard it, the final note." Professor Celeste Adler, head of the musicology department, fumed at the rumors. She alone believed the violin's curse. She retrieved the folio from the vault and called upon Luca Martel, a virtuoso with a reputation for chasing legends. Together they vowed to uncover the truth behind the mortifera and to face its terrible power. Luca arrived at the conservatory on a storm-lashed evening, violin case in hand. Celeste met him in the dimly lit foyer, the folio under her arm. Celeste, you're certain you want this? It will not merely test your skill, it will test your will to live. Luca, smiling wryly, if the final note awaits me, I wish to decide whether to play it. They ascended the grand staircase to the dean's salon. There sat the mortifera Stradivarius on a velvet cushion, its varnish a deep garnet, scroll carved in the shape of a weeping cherub. Luca lifted the instrument reverently. The storm's thunder rattled the windows. That night in the empty concert hall, Luca drew the bow across the mortifera's strings. At first, the tone was ineffably beautiful, a resonance rich with grief and longing. Then beneath the sweetness, something darker emerged, a sub-frequency that prickled the skin, bending the air with invisible weight. Luca felt a pressure in his chest, memories of his mother's funeral, the hollow ache of loss. He faltered. The final note teased him, an unresolved dissonance hanging in the hush. Celeste watched from the back row, heart pounding. She saw the lights flicker, the tuning fork hum mysteriously. Luca drew the bow again. The chord deepened, swirling like a vortex of sound. Then he stopped, breath ragged. Luca, I felt a presence. It was not mine. Over the next fortnight, Celeste and Luca pored over the folio's cryptic inscriptions. He who plays the mortifera's final note shall end the breath that binds his soul to world. Yet only he may choose to cut the cord or bear its song until the end of time. They discovered references to earlier virtuosos, 3 men across 2 centuries, each driven mad or found lifeless after attempting the final note. The violin passed like a torch of doom, awaiting its next victim. Luca, haunted by dreams of spectral figures, pressing mournful hands upon him, resolved to master the instrument, then decide whether to unleash its full power. On the eve of the winter solstice, Luca and Celeste returned to the silent hall. Candles glowed in candelabra, snow drifted against stained glass windows. The mortifera lay waiting. Luca tuned each string to secret frequencies Celeste uncovered. A tonal scale meant to guide the player through loss, acceptance, and final renunciation. When the last string settled, Luca drew the bow in a single, fluid motion. The notes emerged in a seamless arc. First grief's lament, then memory's echo, then hope's faint shimmer, and finally a chord so pure and final, it shattered silence into absent sound. The air itself seemed to sigh. Celeste felt Luca's presence waver. He closed his eyes, the violin's body trembling against his heart. The final note pressed behind her ribs, a telegraph of mortality. She feared he would collapse, but Luca held steady. As the chord faded, he exhaled deeply and opened his eyes with a calmer light. Luca, I heard it, the final note, my life's end in a breath, but I refused to play it again. He set down the mortifera. The instrument's varnish dulled, its strings slackened, as though its purpose had been fulfilled. In the weeks that followed, Luca reclaimed his vitality. Celeste found her nights untroubled by the violin's lament. The mortifera lay silent, its case locked beneath the dean's stone foundations. The folio's last page, blank before, now bore Luca's inscription, I chose to end the final note and live, though death's song waited at each breath. The tale of the mortifera became legend, an allegory of choice and acceptance among the conservatory's halls. Students whispered of Luca's feat, and the violin's power faded into myth. Years later, Celeste retired amid accolades. On her final night in the old concert hall, she ascended the stage alone and tapped the mortifera's case. In her mind, she heard the final note, a memory no ear but her own could bear. She smiled, knowing that some strings once silenced never need play again. And in the stillness, beneath the vaulted ceiling, the hall's hush held one secret truth. The final note of life need not be heard for life's music to continue.